It was a night off for the Rhythm Tamers band in Frederick. Gary, guitarist Jerry Willis and a wannabe vocalist named Harry Babbage were somewhat indecisive of how to spend the evening. The town of Davidson, 2 miles from the Texas line, was an exiguous 12 miles south in the Oklahoma hamlet of Manitou, 8 miles north, both on Highway 183. The musicians were not interested in the boulevard that aphotic night, but in the spur line of the MKT, better known as the Katy Railroad. They were planning an escapade, contingent upon Jerry's 1952 Oldsmobile and the MKT Railroad tracks. It was a little-known reality. The 1952 Olds wheelbase was compatible with the width of the rails addressing the Missouri-Kansas-Texas line. The three Harlequins were about to accost a crossing in Frederick and attempt to position the four-wheeled transport, the 1952 Olds, on the tracks, either heading south towards Texas, or north to Manitou. A discussion deciding that it might be better to remain in Oklahoma, the decision being confirmed, Jerry aligning the vehicle on the tracks in a northern direction. A final procedure remained, lowering the tire pressure to allow the tread to better augment the tracks, the car fitting perfectly. All three aboard, the Oldsmobile making that clickety-clack sound reminisce of the rhythmic posturing of a train. The three vagabonds traversing north, the scenic view of the farming landscape all bathed in the twilight of the setting sun passing in review. Jerry, hands clear of the steering wheel, leaving their four-wheel transport's acuity to the amaranthine rails. The group, knowing there were 6-mile section crossing between Frederick and Manitou, a discussion about exiting before entering the Manitou Trivial Station was entertained. A more novel approach would be to cruise through Manitou, waving and sounding the horn, seeing the reaction of the station master, but a decision was already applicable. Then it was noticed, looking down the tracks, the brilliance of a large approaching light. Its distance was closing, an oncoming train. The next mile section found the opportunity to disembark from the tracks, but hesitating they noticed that the suspected locomotive had chanced to a standstill. It was discerned, the engine must have paused at the Manitou station, the three acknowledging it was either time to get off the tracks or remount the rails heading south back to Frederick. The decision was made, remounting the tracks once again. The clickety-clack resonated as the Oldsmobile picked up speed and all seemed well. Suddenly there was a jolt and all that could be seen was tall grass advancing by the car door windows, and then an eerie silence as the Olds came to a halt. Jerry and Gary opening their doors, the two surveying the situation, and it appeared arduous. The rear of the car extended over the tracks, the front reclining against an embankment. There remained no drivable exit. The car was caught between a rock and a hard place. Jerry was anxious, walking back and forth, repeating several times, "The train, the train." Searching the horizon, a light in a farmhouse was determined just across the bordering pasture, Gary suggesting to Jerry that he arouse the occupants and inquire if there might be a tractor available to extract the car from its precarious position. Jerry hastened up the slight embankment and immediately headed toward the country abode. It was then Gary noticed, the large arrested light down the tracks was again acquiring adjacency, the train had resumed its travel. The derailed Oldsmobile was about 20 yards from the mile section crossing, and it was apparent, the lower profile of the tracks in the intersection more than likely contributed to the derailment. In the moonlight Jerry could be seen returning, crossing the field with another person, Gary going to the mile section crossroad waiting to flag the slow-moving freight to a halt. The approaching train coming to a standstill, the farmer and Jerry arriving as the engineer and fireman disembarked, both appraising the circumstances with a humorous grin. Not the case with the conductor's arrival, a hardened look on his face, commencing a dissertation on the legal infractions and threatening a radio invitation to the highway patrol. The farmer calmly conjectured, there was no way he could remove the car without serious damage because of the embankment and tracks. The Katy line crew huddling, the conductor instructing the engineer to maneuver the locomotive to within 10 feet of the car, then producing a length of chain from the train, fastening one end to the engine and the other to the rear bumper mountings of the Oldsmobile. With the car in neutral, Jerry in the driver's seat, the lumbering locomotive slowly backed toward the intersection, dragging its captive. Finally the forlorn auto was clear of the off-road resting place, now residing at the intersection. The conductor continued with his articulation, penning Jerry's name and information in a notebook, the conductor serving notice that if he ever confronted them again, the results would be different. The MKT diesel locomotive with its host of cars once again resuming its journey south, the two musicians thankful there were no casualties. But still something wasn't right. With all the excitement they suddenly remembered, they were missing someone, having totally forgotten, a questionable look on their face. Where's Harry? From out of the bushes a disheveled Harry Babbage appeared, having remained in hiding throughout the precarious incident. Later, with some forethought about the episode, Gary concluded, irresponsibility can accommodate a derailed conclusion.